Hi, this is Krista at the Secret Yarnery. Today we are making this cropped granny square poncho. This cropped granny square poncho is so easy to make, and I'm even going to be showing you how to do a continuous join as you go all the way around your neckline here, so that when you are finished you only have 2 strands to sew in. Super easy to do, and I'll show you how to do it step by step. If English isn't your first language, you can click this gear on the video and scroll through to find your preferred dialect. Of course, you can join them any which way you like, but definitely give it a try. I'm with you the whole way. You don't need that much yarn, just 300 grams of a worsted weight acrylic. So I'm using Savor from Ice Yarns. It is a 4-weight worsted acrylic. It comes in 200 grams and 330 meters, and then a different color for your flowers and just a tiny little bit of scrap for the center of your flowers. If you find this helpful, don't forget to subscribe for more crochet tips and tricks. I used a 6mm crochet hook for the flowers and a 7mm crochet hook for the neutral yarn, so the joining and the rest of your poncho. You will also need a pair of scissors and a needle for sewing in your ends. And if you want to follow along with written pattern, all of my patterns are available on my website, secretyarnery.com, and you don't have to worry about being able to read a pattern. All of my patterns are written in plain English, just like I was sitting there right beside you. Here are the timestamps. You can jump back into where you left off, and let's get started. To start your granny squares, we're going to start with a magic ring. So lay the tail over your non-dominant hand and hold it on your ring finger with your thumb. Wrap it around 2 fingers, making an X, and bring it around that 3rd finger, just holding it underneath your thumb. Flip your hand over, you will have a short strand and a long strand. Slide your hook under the short strand, hook side down, on top of the long strand so we can drag it. Bring it underneath the short strand and tip the hook towards yourself. Slowly release your thumb so that long strand can slide. Turn the hook away from yourself and grab that long strand. And just pinch everything that is underneath your hook and bring that yarn through the loop. So there is your magic ring. And now we're going to make 7 single crochets. So 7 single crochets into the center of the ring, taking care to go over your tail. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And now we're going to pull our tail to shrink up our magic ring. And we're going to slip stitch into our first stitch right here. I'm going to slip stitch into that stitch to join. So just get that first loop on your hook and the second loop, and we're going to slip stitch to join. Chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn and pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. So that finishes round 1. Are you enjoying this tutorial? Go ahead and hit this button under this video right now so you don't miss out on any more quick and easy fun tutorials just like this. To start round 2, we want to keep an eye on where we finished, where our join is, and we want to work in to that second stitch or that stitch right there. So after our join, we want to be working into that stitch. It doesn't matter exactly where, but this is the easiest spot so you can make sure you have the right number. We can always adjust what is a stitch around that join. So pick this stitch right there and pop your hook in. Loop of your flower color on your hook. Bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. And drop your tail, just holding it along the top of your work, and chain 2. 1 and 2. So that counts as your first double crochet, and into that very same stitch, 4 more double crochets, or 4 double crochets. So there is 1, 2, 3, and 4, And we're going to turn that into a popcorn. So pull your hook up to make a bigger loop and take it out. We want to be looking for the top of our chain right over here. We want to get 2 strands of that stitch on the top of our hook. So pop your hook in to the top of that chain, loop of yarn back on your hook. Just put your finger on the top of your hook so that doesn't slide off. You don't want to lose your stitches. Bring it through and chain 2, 1 and 2. So into the next stitch right here, and each stitch all the way along, we're going to be doing a 5 double crochet popcorn into each stitch. So wrap your yarn and into that next stitch, 5 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Pull your hook up to make a bigger loop. Look for that very first double crochet we made. So I just pop my finger right in between that space, and that's going to help you find that very first double crochet that we made. We want to pop our hook into that stitch, loop of yarn back on, just holding the top of your hook with your finger, turning your hook and bringing it through, and chaining 2, 1 and 2. So into that next stitch, 5 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Pull your hook up, take your hook out, look for that very first double crochet we made and just slide your hook into that stitch. Loop of yarn back on your hook, just holding it on with your finger, bringing it through and chaining 2. So you can pause the video and keep working around a 5 double crochet popcorn into each stitch, and I'll meet you when we get back closer to our join. I'll show you why we joined in that spot. So pause the video, keep working around. You want a total of 8 popcorns, but I'll meet you when we get to the join. When you get closer to that join, you can just count your popcorns. So I have done 6. I know I have to do 2 more. So the easiest way for me to do that, I'm going to use our join as a stitch. So I'm going to go right in before the join. That's not really a stitch, but I'm going to pretend it is. So that's going to be a stitch for me, and also our regular stitch afterwards. That guy right there. So you can always adjust how many stitches you need. Plus, it also helps even out the spacing of our popcorns. You don't have a big bloop where you skipped over that join. So count how many popcorns you have to make, and then use that join as a stitch to get 8 popcorns. Also, when you are making your 8th popcorn, your last one, you can just fold your first popcorn down, just holding it along the back of your work so it doesn't get in the way when you are crocheting that last popcorn. So just fold it down and pinch it behind to give yourself some more space to get that last popcorn done. So there are my 8 popcorns, and we're going to slip stitch to the far side. So here's our first popcorn. We're going to slip stitch right there to the top, or that first chain we made right after that first popcorn. So jumping straight over, just pop it into that stitch. You want 2 strands on the top of your hook. We're going to slip stitch to join and chain 1 to secure our yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. Now we want to sew in our tail, especially for our magic ring in the beginning. So really give it a big strong tug and then go ahead and sew it in. I like to use a sharp tip needle, or thread whatever needle you have, but sharp tips are really, really handy. And we're just going to go forward about 3 times and backwards twice, just to make sure that the beginning of our poncho is secure. It's not going to come out. So 3 times forwards and then twice backwards. So there we go. We can cut off that tail. And the other tails we can sew in as well. So pause the video and get all of your flowers done and your ends sewn in. When your 12 flowers are ready, grab your 2 stitch markers and just pop one into each of these flowers on the corners, on the ends. So there's going to be one corner over here and one corner over here. So we're just marking them like that so we know what to do. We're going to do something different when we get to those particular flowers. Grab your 7mm crochet hook and your yarn. We're going to start continuous join as you go, and I hope you try this with me. You can totally do it. We're just going to work around joining all of our flowers just along the outside. I'll try to be crafty and come up with a graphic, but we're just going to go around all of our flowers on the outside until we get back to where we started. And then we're going to come in and we're going to work back along in between, joining when we're coming up. So we're going to go around our flower on 2 sides and then join them together on the one side, around on 2 sides, joining on the next side, all the way around. So it's really easy. We're doing the same thing over and over. So you're going to get the hang of it. I'm going to do it with you step by step. So I hope you try it with me. If not, of course, you could join these little cute flowers just how you normally would with a granny square join. But you will love this. Only one tail when we start and one tail when we finish. So save yourself 24 tails or 22 tails just by trying this with me now. So I'm going to start on this flower right here. Let me move these a little out of the way. So I'm going to start with this cute little flower here. So to start joining, we're going to be joining all the way along the outside. So one side of our flowers, 2 sides of our corners. So grab your first flower and pop your hook in to any space. Doesn't matter where, just pop your hook in to any space between those popcorns. Grab a loop of your joining color, bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just holding it along the back of your work. We can crochet over that for a couple stitches. And chain 2, 1 and 2. That counts as our first double crochet. Wrap your yarn and into that same space, 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. Into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And into the next space, we're going to do a corner. So this is what we're going to do for flowers with a stitch marker in them. We're going to put a corner into that 3rd space. So corners, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. There's 1, 2, 3. Slide your stitches back to give yourself some more room. Chain 2. And 3 more double crochets into that same space. Just to finish off our corner. There is 2, and here is number 3. Now into each of the next 2 spaces, we're going to put 3 double crochets into each. So into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3, and into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. So that is what we're going to do when we get to these flowers with the stitch marker. And now we're going to grab our next flower. So this guy right over here. So we're going to wrap our yarn and just hold it on your hook with your finger. You don't want those loops or that yarn falling off or sliding off of your hook. Find any spot of our new flower and just pop your hook in, and we're going to do 3 double crochets into 3 spaces. So there is our first one. Now you can let our finished block just hang down below. Don't worry about having to hold it or keep it out of the way. Just let it hang, it'll stay out of your way. So there's 1 double crochet, here is number 2, and here is number 3. Into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. So we've gone into 2 spaces now. We're going to go into the third. So 3 double crochets into 3 spaces. 3 by 3. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Now if I'm going too fast or too slow, don't forget you can slow me down with that gear, or you can also pause the video and get caught up. So that is what we're doing for all of our flowers that don't have a stitch marker. 3 double crochets into 3 spaces. That's it. So it's not too hard, right? Grab your next flower and wrap your yarn, just holding that wrap on your hook, and find any space of our new flower. And 3 double crochets into 3 spaces. So there's our first double crochet, just letting our finished flowers hang down. Don't worry about them. Eventually they'll lay on the table or your lap and it'll be easier. So there is 3 into the first. Now this is our second space. 1, 2, and 3. And one more time into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. So the exact same we did. We're going to be doing that for all of our flowers without a stitch marker. So grab your next flower, just making sure you keep in order. Wrap your yarn, hold it on your hook. Find a space of your new flower. Just pop your hook in and 3 double crochets into 3 spaces. So here's 1, 2, and 3. Into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3, and into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Grab your next flower, wrap your yarn, just holding it on your hook with your finger, and into any space of your new flower, 3 double crochets into any space. So 1. Now you can drop the flower you've completed. There's 2, and here is 3. Into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3, and into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. So now you can pause the video and keep working along, joining up your cute little flowers, same way as we are doing right here, and I will meet you when you get to that flower with the stitch marker. So now we are at our flower with a stitch marker. So this side, or this flower, we're going to do 2 sides. So wrap your yarn, just holding that wrap on your hook, and into any space. Just go in and do 3 double crochets into the first 2 spaces. There's 2 double crochets, and here is 3. Into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And into the next space, we're going to do a corner. So corners, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets all into the same space. So there is 2 and 3, chain 2, 1 and 2, and 3 more double crochets into that same space. 1, 2, and 3. Now into each of the next 2 spaces, 3 double crochets into each. So into this next space, 3 double crochets. And into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. So there is our corner, or the flower we have with the stitch marker. So now you can pause the video and keep working along, joining your flowers the same way as we did before. And I will meet you when you get to that very last flower. So into our last flower, wrap your yarn, just holding it on your hook with your finger, and into any space of your last flower, 3 double crochets into the first 2 spaces. There's 3 into one space, so 3 into the next. 1, 2, and 3. And into the next space, we're going to do a corner. So corners, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. So this flower here, we're going to work all the way around, all sides. So there is our 3 double crochets onto 3 sides, chain 2, and 3 more double crochets into that same space. 1, 2, and 3. Into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And into the next space, we're going to do a corner. So 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets, all into the same space. So there's 2, 3, chain 2, and 3 more double crochets into that same space. 1, 2, and 3. Into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And into the next space, we're going to do a corner. So 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. There's 2, 3, chain 2. You can slide your stitches back if you need some more room, and 3 more double crochets into that same space. 1, 2, and 3. And into our next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. So now we have crocheted around just on the outside of all of our flowers. Now we are ready to start joining. So I'm going to show you how to join. This is where you can take your time. You can totally do it. Don't worry about it. I know you can do it, but just take your time, and I'm going to be with you step by step. Whenever you get the hang of it, you can just skip ahead and get to the next part or the next timestamp in the video that you need. But I'm going to walk you through this step by step, and you are going to be a continuous join as you go, fan after it. So don't worry. So when we get back to our corner that already has stitches in it, this guy here, we need to finish off that corner. So it only has the 3 double crochets. So we're going to go in and put 3 more double crochets just to finish off that corner. There is 2, and here is 3. Now instead of doing our normal chain 2 like we have been doing for corners, we are going to look at the bottom of our work where we did our joining. And we just want to make sure that it isn't twisted. So see how those pretty little V's are all going side by side? That is what we want. We don't want anything looking maybe like that where there's a twist. So just make sure you have V's going through that little section right there. And now we're just going to slip stitch right around it. So don't worry exactly where your slip stitch goes. It is going to end up in the skinniest spot. So we're just going to slip stitch right around that skinny part. Just like that, and chain 1. Our slip stitch and chain 1 count as our chain 2 for our corner. And now make sure you aren't twisted around. So we are facing like this now. We've finished this flower here, so we can drop it. We don't have to really be touching it right now. Go in on the block we are working on, or the flower we're working on. Slide those stitches forward. We want to do our 3 double crochets into the same space that has stitches. So every time you start a new flower, make sure you're going into a space that already has stitches. That's our corner. We have to finish off that corner. So 3 double crochets into the space that already has stitches. So there is our 3 double crochets. Now we want to lay our work out flat. We want our finished flower above us. Now it is just hanging loose. We just want to tip it over that way. So our join, where we did our slip stitch, is right here, and we want it to be above us with this join right there, available to us. Now we're going to slip stitch in between our sets of 3 double crochets. So we're going to be slip stitching here, and we're going to be slip stitching there next time. So first, right now, we're going to slip stitch right here in the block we have finished. So just pop your hook down into that space. Bring your yarn up and slip stitch. Get the flower we're working on. You can let the finished flower just hang. And into the next space, we're going to do 3 double crochets. So 3 double crochets into the next space. 1, 2, and 3. Lay your work out nice and flat with your finished work above you. We want to look for that next space after the next set of 3 double crochets right here. So just pop your hook in and bring your yarn up and through and slip stitch. Now into the next space, we're going to start our corner. So 3 double crochets to start. 1, 2, and 3. And now we're going to go into that corner on the block we have already completed. So just into that corner space, pop your hook down into the space, grab your yarn, and slip stitch. Chain 1. That'll even out our corners. Now into the very same space, 3 double crochets to finish the corner. So corners, we always want to make sure we have our 6 double crochets. We don't want to jump over. So just like that. So now we have done our first join, and we're just going to repeat that all the way along our granny squares, all the way along the top. So for our next granny square, and all of our granny squares all the way down, we are going to be finishing this flower on the 2 sides. So 3 double crochets into the space, corner, 3 double crochets into the space, finishing the corner, slip stitching, and then joining when we get to the next flower. So for now, we're just finishing off these 2 sides. So into the flower we are working on, 3 double crochets into the next space. 1, 2, and 3. And into the next space, we're going to do a corner, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. There's 2. Here is 3. Chain 2 and 3 more double crochets into that same space. 1, 2, and 3. Into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And into the next space, we have some stitches. So we're going to finish off that corner. So into that last space where we already have stitches, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Turn your work up so you can see this bottom join where we have joined them together. We just want to make sure that that's not twisted. So it'll look like this if it's twisted. A little bit weird. We want to check to just make sure all those V's are lined up. If the V's are lined up, it's not twisted. So just go ahead. We're just going to slip stitch around the whole thing. So just pop your hook under that skinny bit and slip stitch. You don't have to worry about exactly where to go. It will figure itself out. So chain 1 and grab the flower we are joining now, and this is how we're going to join a new flower. So slide those stitches back in that corner space. We always want to join into a corner that has stitches. So once we're starting to work on a new flower, we want to always go into a space that has stitches in it already. So 3 double crochets into that space that already has stitches, just to finish off our corner. Get everything laying down nice and flat so we can see where we're working in on the block we have finished. And we are going to be putting our hook in right here, just after those sets of double crochets, just in this spot. So just pop your hook in, bring your yarn up, and slip stitch. Now into the flower we are joining 3 double crochets into the next space. 1, 2, and 3. Lay everything nice and flat. Look for your next space, which is right here in between those sets of double crochets. Grab your yarn and bring it up and slip stitch. Now into the next space on the flower we're working on, 3 double crochets to start our corner. There's 1, 2, and 3. And now we're going to slip stitch right into that corner space. So slip stitch into that corner space. And chain 1. Now slide your stitches back. We're going to finish off that corner. So always remember, corners we have to work in, or when we're starting a new side on our flower, we have to go into that same space that has stitches. So 3 double crochets into the same space that has stitches already. And our join is finished. Now we're just going to go around and finish off our flower. So 3 double crochets into the next space. 1, 2, and 3. And into the next space, we're going to do a corner. So 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. There's 2. Here's number 3, chain 2. Slide your stitches back if you need some more room. We always want our stitches laying flat side by side. There's 1, 2, and 3. And into the next space, we're going to do 3 double crochets. So it's a corner aside, a corner aside, a corner aside, all the way around these little flowers. So here is our 3 double crochets for the side. And now we are at our corner space. So slide your corner stitches ahead to give yourself some more room, and 3 double crochets into that corner space. 1, 2, and 3. Now look at the bottom of your work. We want to make sure that it is not twisted up. We want all of our V's sitting nice side by side. And slip stitch around the skinny part-ish, and chain 1. So now we have joined up our 3 flowers. You can keep going back and watching how to do this join all the way along. We're going to do it 2 more times, 1 and 2, until we get to this corner flower, the flower that has a stitch marker in it. So now I've joined up my 5, and I am at the flower with the stitch marker, our corner flower. So this is how we join the corner flower. So I've done my slip stitch and my chain 1. I am ready to work into that corner space on the flower I'm joining. So 3 double crochets into the same space that already has stitches. Like that. Now get your work above you and look for that next space on the block we have finished. Just pop your hook down and bring your yarn up and through and slip stitch to join, and into the next space 3 double crochets. So just like we always have been doing, nothing really new here. Might look new, but it's the same thing we're doing. So 3 double crochets into that space, and then slip stitch into the next space on the block we have completed. Now we're going to start a corner into the next space, so 3 double crochets into that corner space, or the next space that's going to be a corner. There's our 3. And we're going to slip stitch into the corner space of the block we have finished. So 1 little slip stitch and a chain 1. So now we can rotate our work, so we're working along the last side of our flower. Slide those stitches forward. Remember, we have to go back into that same space to put in 3 more double crochets to finish off that corner. So 1, 2, and 3. And 3 double crochets into the next space. 1, 2, and 3. Into the next space, there's stitches in there. That's going to be a corner, so we have to finish off that corner. So 3 double crochets into that next space to finish off the corner. There's 1, 2, and 3. Now we want to look at the bottom of our work and just make sure those V's are lined up and looking pretty. And we're just going to slip stitch around that skinny part and chain 1. So that finishes off our corner block. Now we are ready to join on the next side. So our flower is going to join here, just like that. So now our work above us is going to be looking like that. So grab your next flower, and this is the exact same as we've been doing, just joining on the one side. So always start your flower going into the same space that already has stitches. We start and finish into a space that has stitches. So to start, 3 double crochets into a space, or the space that has stitches already in it. And now we're going to slip stitch to join right here. So slip stitch to join, and 3 double crochets into the next space. 1, 2, and 3. Into this space right here, we're going to go in and slip stitch to join. And we're going to start our corner into the next space. So 3 double crochets into the next space to start our corner. There is 2, and here is 3. Now lay your work out flat. We're going to join into the space between these blocks. See that big space between? We're going to join right in there. So we're not going to go into actual corner space. We're going to go into the space between the blocks right there. So pop your hook in down into that space between the blocks and slip stitch to join and chain 1. So now you can pause the video and keep working along, finishing off the flower on 2 sides, doing your cute little slip stitch here, joining on the one side and finishing off on the 2 sides, slip stitching, etc. all the way down your flowers. And I'll meet you when you get to your last flower right here. When you get to your very last flower, I have done my slip stitch around and my chain 1. We're just going to finish off this block like normal, or this side at least like normal. We're going to join it on this one side like usual. So 3 double crochets into the same space that already has stitches to finish off that corner. And then lay everything nice and flat. We're going to slip stitch into that next space to join. 1 slip stitch. Into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3, and into the next space, slip stitch to join. So hook down and yarn up and slip stitch, and then we're going to start our corner into the next space. So 3 double crochets into that corner space, or into the next space that is going to be a corner. There is 2. Here is 3, and now we want to get ourselves a little bit situated. So make sure all your flowers are facing up, and we want to bring this side over like that. We're going to be joining this last side here right there. So make sure nothing's twisted around. So I've done my 3 double crochets into that corner space. So I'm going to slip stitch into the space of the block I would normally be slip stitching to. I'm also going to slip stitch into the next. So 2 slip stitches and no chaining. So instead of a chain 2, we just did 2 slip stitches. Now into that same corner space that has stitches, we're going to finish our corner. So 3 double crochets into the same corner space on the flower we're working on. Get everything flat into the next space on the block we're joining to. Slip stitch to join. Into the next space on the flower we're working on, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And into the next space on the block we're joining to, slip stitch to join. Just a little slip stitch. And now we're going to go back into this next space that has stitches in it to finish our corner. So 3 double crochets into the next space that has stitches in it, just to finish off our corner. Slip stitch into the corner of the block we have finished to join and chain 1. Now we're going to slip stitch. You just turn our work around so we can see what we're up to. We're going to slip stitch into the top of our chain 3. I'm going to slip stitch right there to join. So pop your hook in and slip stitch. And chain 1 to secure your yarn. Now I'm going to fasten off my yarn and rejoin in a corner, just because I always like to join in a corner. It's easier to hide your tails, plus it's easier to hide that chain. So I am going to choose to not continue right here. I'm going to cut my yarn, pull my hook up and my yarn through, and snug that down to secure. Now we have this little boat shape. We can go ahead, take out our stitch markers. And we are ready to build our poncho. So that is what we have so far. Super cute yoke for our poncho. The back, look at that, no ends to sew in. Well, if you count this, there's 2 ends to sew in. Isn't that just gorgeous? So I'm going to go into this corner space near where my other tails are, just so when I'm sewing in my tails, I don't have to look for them all. They're all going to be in the same area. So into that corner space, I'm just going to pop in my hook. I'm going to use the same yarn for my poncho, but if you are using a different color of yarn for the body of your poncho, or you're doing stripes, just go ahead and grab your next color of yarn. So loop of yarn on your hook, bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail just holding it along the top of your work. We can work over it for a couple stitches and chain 2. 1 and 2. So that counts as our first double crochet. Wrap your yarn and into that very same corner space, 2 double crochets. So that counts as our first 3. Now drop your tail. We're going to have to sew that in later. And we're going to do 3 double crochets into each space along the side. So this space and that space. 3 double crochets into each. 1, 2, and 3. And into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Now when we get to our join, we're going to do something different. These 2 spaces here count as one set of 3 double crochets. So this is how we're going to do all of our joins. We're going to start with 1 double crochet into the first corner space. And we're going to start our second double crochet into the first corner space, but we're going to leave it on our hook. Now find the corner space after the join right here, and we're going to start a double crochet into the corner space after the join. So you'll have 3 loops on your hook. Wrap your yarn and take off all 3 loops and make 1 more double crochet into that space after the join. Just like that. So we did 4 double crochets, but it counts as 3 double crochets. So that's how we're going to even out those spaces so that our poncho, our stitch count will match. So 3 double crochets into each space along the side. 1, 2, 3. And into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And now we're at our join. So look for your 2 corner spaces before and after the join. Before the join, 1 double crochet and start a second. So the space before the join, 1 double crochet that we finish, and 1 double crochet that we leave on the hook. Into the space after the join, 1 double crochet that we start, 3 loops on our hook. We are going to finish those stitches together, and 1 more double crochet into the same space. So now you can pause the video and keep working along. 3 double crochets into each space along the sides. And then when you get to your joins, into the first space, 1 double crochet and start a second. And into the second space, start a double crochet. Finish it with the double crochet that's already on your hook. And 1 more double crochet. That is what you're going to do for every join. So pause the video and keep working along. I'll meet you when you get to the next corner. When you reach the corner, we're going to do a corner, so 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets into the corner space. So there is 3, chain 2. You can rotate our work a little bit. If you need more room, you can slide those stitches back so your stitches lay down side by side, nice and straight. And 3 more double crochets to finish that corner. Now you can keep going along this side, 3 double crochets into each of the spaces, and then at the joins, 1 double crochet and start a second. Into the second side, start a second double crochet, finish both of those double crochets together and make 1 more double crochet all the way along this side, and I'll meet you when we get to where we began. When you get back to the corner where we started, 3 double crochets to finish that corner. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1, and we're going to single crochet into the top of that chain to join. So make 1 single crochet, and that leaves us right in the middle of our corner space. Here is the pattern repeat. So to start, we're always going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and into that same space, or I'm just holding it open with my finger, we're going to do 2 double crochets into that space. 1 and 2. Now along the side, each of these spaces is going to get 3 double crochets, and there's nothing new to do on this round because we've made all of our joins nice and equal, so each space before and after gets 3 double crochets. So nothing new to do. We're just going to do 3 double crochets into each space. No chaining. We only chain at our corners. So 3 double crochets into each space, all the way along our blanket, all the way along our poncho. 3 double crochets into each space. So pause the video, keep working along, and I'll meet you when we get to our corner. When you get to your corner, we are going to do 3 double crochets, chain 2 and 3 double crochets into the same corner space. So corners always get corners. So there is 3, chain 2, and 3 more double crochets into that same corner space. So there is our corner. Now you can pause the video and keep working along all the way along the next side of our poncho, 3 double crochets into each space, and I'll meet you when you get back to where we started. If you are new to crochet, you might want to pop a stitch marker into that space right where we began our double crochets, just so when you're working along, it doesn't look like another space along your blanket. You can tell that that is going to be our corner. So pause the video, keep working along, and I'll meet you when we get back to where we started. When you get back to where we started, you can pop that stitch marker out if you are using one, and into that same corner space, 3 double crochets to finish off our round. So there's 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to be continuing with the same color yarn for my whole poncho, or at least until we get closer to the border at the bottom. But if you want to do stripes or you want to join an end, I'll show you how to do that. So if you're going to join an end, chain 2, 1 and 2, and into the top of the chain 3, so right here, top of the chain 3, we want to get 2 strands of that on the top of our hook. We will slip stitch to join. So this is if you want to end or change colors. Slip stitch to join and chain 1. Then you would cut your yarn, pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. And then you would join your yarn in the opposite corner over here. But I'm going to join and continue. So I'm going to do my usual chain 1 and single crochet into the top of that chain 3 to join. So 1 single crochet to join. And while I'm holding it open, I like to just start the next row. So I'll just do my chain 3 and 2 double crochets into that same space just while I'm working on it. So I would just leave it like that. Then at least when I come back, I know what I'm doing. I know to keep going around my poncho. So now you can keep going row after row until your poncho is the size you want it to be. If you'd like to make yours larger, have more width around you so it's not so tight or so small, then you would just go around and do a corner wherever you felt like it. So maybe not straight in the front. Maybe on these two spaces here, you would do a corner for one round. So 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. And whatever you do on the one side, do on the other side. Then when you come around the next row into that corner space would just be 3 double crochets. So that's how you can add some more stitches or some more size to your poncho as you are working on it. So just keep trying it on, see if you want to make it a little bit bigger for that round, and then just go ahead, toss a corner in wherever you feel like it, and next round into the center of that corner or that chain 2 space, just add your set of 3 double crochets. So pause the video and keep working along until your poncho is the length you want it to be. When you get back to where you started, we are going to join with a chain 2, 1 and 2, and we're going to slip stitch to join. So we're going to slip stitch into the same spot, the top of that chain 3. So go inside that stitch and slip stitch to join. Chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. Sew in your tails and you're finished. So I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I'm waiting for you in that video right there, and stay hooked.